So people, let's take the Camino as a sort of metaphor for the whole thing.
Yeah.
People go, they hike in Spain, they have this euphoric, challenging, beautiful moment. They open, and then they go back to their job at a bank in Toledo,
Right.
or to raising the kids in Texas, or to London, and have to keep on with life. And what in your experience, what happens?
Well, let's talk about the universal journey, which is coming into play here. And this is something that I've had to learn both in my own life, but also in spiritual direction and in psychology. The moment right after the opening, oh my God, all holy hell breaks out.
Yeah.
Nobody prepared me for the crisis that comes after the opening. And to the degree that it was a true and a deep opening, the crisis right after that is going to be even deeper and more disorganizing.
So every person is like, "Oh my word, I got rocked. I don't even know what I believe anymore. Oh my word, it's like the rug's been pulled out from underneath it." I'm always like, "Yeah, welcome. That's how it
Yes,
works."
absolutely.
The thing that's most terrifying you is proof that you're actually alive and you're actually on the
Yeah,
path.
yeah. Because what the opening does is it gives you energy. It doesn't give you content. We think the opening has content in it, but actually what it is it gives us a whole new reservoir of energy. And that energy is there to be a deep reservoir to help us come to the new answers. But the first thing that that energy is going to do is it's going to wipe away the old. It's like a flood. It's going to wipe away the old.
The
So
old,
the old thoughts, the old categories, the old way of responding. And we don't like that very much. I mean, as much as we want to grow, we want certitude and we want the comfort of what used to be.
and if the new thing is coming, which means it's pushing out the old, then there is a period when you don't have either.
Right. And that's very unsettling. In our culture today, that's very unsettling. So people leave the Camino and they come home and they've had this opening. They've had this glimpse of a new way of living. But you're back at home. You're looking at the bank statements.
Yeah.
You've got to respond to your boss. You got to respond to your spouse, the children, and suddenly all this new energy is all bottled up, and for many people it begins to turn against them. And I've seen this in so many friends. They get depressed
Uh,
because the life that they were imagining for themselves on the Camino is not sustained when they get home. And now what they've got to do is they've got to understand that this bottling of energy, this depression, is very useful. It's telling them that they're going to now go through a very slow process of making new decisions. But that slow process of making new decisions is not necessarily going to be comfortable.
so now the hard work begins,
Now the hard work begins.
and that's okay.
It's the Camino has been the very best preparation for doing the hard work of the return. But yes, it's and uh, not the next book not the book I'm working on now, but the book after that. I think is going to be helping people to come back. Whether that's coming back from the Camino or whether that's coming back from Raw Bell. Uh, there's almost nothing out there in the literature about the return.
Really,
No,
it's here's how to go have an ecstatic, transformational, whatever experience, but there isn't a lot on what to do afterwards
right.
when you don't fit. So you had a group of friends, but then you've had these experiences, and you can't just go over to Sheila's house and pretend like everything's fine, or Cliff's on Sunday afternoon, or whatever it is. I'm just making up. I
Right.
mean, like this, you've always had the way you've done it with your people, and then you've had this thing that changed you, and your people haven't had it. And what do you do now? Because
Right.
it's lonely.
Right.
And you're going to write that book.
I'm going to write that book. And I know that in terms of the Camino metaphor, what many people are doing is they're returning to the Camino to work it out, to help the experience go deeper and to give them the strength to come back home in a new way. But you don't necessarily have to do that. But you need to be prepared that the return is not going to be necessarily easy. It's not going to be the triumphant, our walking hero has returned home. Let's
Right,
all,
right, right.
yeah.
Now, what do you, because I know you speak all over the world. Let's say you're speaking somewhere and somebody says, this is great, be nice to have 52 days and however many thousands of dollars to walk up in Spain, but I have a small business and two kids in a small town. Um, how do you talk about the journey when people are like, here's my life. You know what I mean? My roof leaks. I drive a Dodge. My husband's name is Larry. He works for the cable company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, Not a lot of sexy fireworks around here.
No.
And it'd be nice to go off and just be able to hike and think about mountains and Stonehenge. But this is what it's actually like. How do you talk to people about the four
We, we,
elements of the journey?
we're all on the journey. You're on the journey doing laundry. You're on the journey if you're a passionate football fan or Australian rules or soccer or rugby. This journey is happening in the midst of the particularities of your life. So let's talk about when you have these aha moments, and and then what happens right after it is your life presents you a great challenge, and how you're going to resolve that challenge after the aha is going to be whether you have something that you can use to live your life with more vitality. So why do fans have this enormous come down right after their team has had a great season, right after the Super Bowl is over? Uh, be, be,
That would be the
ah,
dog.
hey.
Oh
Yes,
my word.
we
That was like a gunshot. Okay, why the come down?
because we keep forgetting that the aha moment is not about content; it's about energy. And
It's not about content. It's not about.
it's not about what we're thinking about. It's not about the experience. It's not about having won the football game. It's about that experience of something greater opens your desire to grow,
Hmm.
to be more to be more unified, to
Mm-hmm.
live in oneness. But what's going to come right after that is your life is going to present you some serious challenges to that, so that you can actually make that desire part of your everyday life. So you're going to get the lessons if you will move into the lessons with the right attitude. So the lessons are not disconfirming the aha experience, they're actually giving you, here's how you can make that aha part of your lived reality.
Wow. So would you say to somebody, be on the lookout because when you have great transcendent experiences, glimpses, you hear something you haven't heard before, keep your eyes peeled because what will come next are challenges that will be invitations to actually embody what just happened.
Yes. Now here's an experience of a friend that I was sitting with, and she was in a very difficult relationship, and she was really wrestling: do I stay in this relationship? Do I end this relationship? And she went on a retreat, and she had this opening, this aha moment. She came back and she reported to me, now I know I can make this relationship work. And I was like, okay, Sue, but I want you to just stay in the fluid. She came back the next week and she said, now I know I can't make this relationship work. I need to end it. And I said, Sue, just stay with the energy, not the content. The energy is oscillating like a roller coaster. About a month later, she came back to me and she said, I don't know whether I can stay in the relationship. I don't know that I can't stay in the relationship. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit down with my partner tonight, I'm going to say, I'm really hurting. And I want to invite you to be with me in these questions that I'm having. And if you can't be in the questions with me, then that's okay. It's probably going to mean that the relationship is going to end. Because she had worked through I have to stay in the relationship, I can't stay in the relationship, and came to this place of spaciousness inside of herself.
Spaciousness
Yes.
inside of herself.
It was really okay with her whether her partner said, I'll enter the conversation or I won't enter the conversation with her. She didn't have an attachment to his doing one or the other. And because of that spaciousness inside of herself, he was willing to enter the journey with her. Yeah. It still ended up months later with their separating. But it ended up as a very amicable
Yeah,
separation where they're
yeah,
still friends.
yeah.
But the retreat experience gave her this sense that she had the answer. And she didn't have the answer, she had the energy. But energy moves in a pattern of up and down, or what we call oscillation. And so she's got to move with that energy until it settles down into what I call spaciousness. And the spaciousness clears us out from our attachments to where we can approach another in a place of, if you want, loving kindness and invite them to something, but with open hands. Then we'll find out what the real response is. Now, that's what happens after a third path or an aha experience. But in this culture, we tend to grab the aha and think that's the answer, rather than realize that the aha is going to lead us on a journey, an energy journey, to the answer.
Wow. Okay, that just raises 1,000 new questions. I love answers and energy and the oscillating nature of energy. Okay, what about those who their primary spiritual conditioning has been go to a service where there's going to be this insanely high, cranked up emotion and songs and go, yeah, woo, and the singers have matching sweaters. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
friend of mine used to call church services. He'd be like, you still involved with that cocaine? Which was like you're making people addicted.
People can't see that I'm wildly nodding. Yes, yes.
And then just the other day, a friend of mine was talking about this church gathering that was like extremely emotional. I'm not really familiar with this, but like really emotional. I don't even know how to describe it, but it just felt like they were describing an endorphin experience, and that then they have another midweek service, and then there are multiple services, and it was like, oh wow, the people you're talking about sounds like they just go to church all the time.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, but you can pretty much be going to something. What is that? Because something within me is like, that can't be the path.
No, because that's the third path frozen. And
The third path frozen.
yeah, I keep
You
going.
even have a term for
I
it.
keep going back to that experience to stay on the high, forgetting that the high is just simply energy about opening me to finish the journey.
So when it gets difficult, just go back to the opening experience
Right.
and open back up. Feel great. Raise your
Or
hands.
try to get back to that. I mean, the first time you have it, it's a very true deep opening.
Yeah.
But then I'm going back to try to recapture what was,
Okay.
rather than moving ahead.
But then what happens if somebody for 2 years in a row, every Sunday, goes back to the opening experience? What does that do over time?
I mean,
It seems like it would work against maturity and growth.
as a general rule, yes. There are always exceptions.
We're not against gatherings, of course, but
everybody is on their own
sure,
path.
sure.
But the third path is about moving to the fourth. It's not about staying at the third path. And this is why it's so important in the Christian metaphor that John is the third gospel and not the fourth gospel. John's the mountaintop, and we're not intended to stay there. I love when I'm out talking to the high liturgical churches, because the last part of Sunday service is, in common language, get out of here.
Yeah.
Get out of here and get back to work. Don't stay in adoration. There was a time for adoration. It's very short now. Take the energy of the adoration and go out and go everywhere with it.
By the way, those of you listening, it's in Alexander's book, Heart and Mind, that he sort of outlines why it was Matthew, Mark, John, Luke was how the first church read it, and not Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. He explains all that. Side note, this is fascinating to me. This is really fascinating to me. The nature of spiritual awakening, all the ways I understand craving to get back to the opening experience when the path only goes forward, which is now we have to take the opening and work it out in actual blood, sweat, and tears of everyday life.
Yeah.